considered to be the most haunted building on the eastern seaboard. Now, Ripley's itself, believe it or not, wasn't always a believe it or not. This thing actually started off as the Warden Castle, 1887. How many people you got? 3. 1887, it started off as the Warden Castle. Now, in this time, we have 3 very rich, very influential men, folks. How many people on here are from Florida? Oh, quite a few. Okay. Now, the reason I'm asking, folks, you might be familiar with a couple of these names. Now, the first name everybody knows, John D. Rockefeller. Folks, doesn't matter where you're from. Now, this next name, if you're from Florida, you might recognize it, maybe not. William Wharton. Folks, William Wharton is the man that built what is today Ripley's Museum. Then we have Mr. Henry Flagler. Folks, if you're from Florida and you say you don't recognize that name, you're telling me a fib. You're not from Florida. These 3 men, Rockefeller, Wharton, and Flagler, they own Standard Oil. They're 3 of the richest and most influential men in the world at this time. They come down here, well, these 2, Wharton and Flagler, they come down to Florida. Mr. Flagler wants to build hotels and railways. He wants to get his friends here. Well, Mr. Wharton comes down with him as well for a lot of different reasons, but mostly he's just being a little nosy. He wants to see what all the fuss is about. Well, he gets down here and finds a house that he really likes. The name of that house is the Via Zareta. Folks, we're going to be going by it in a bit. If we do, I'll point it out and explain why that house is so important even today, but he really loves the Via Zareta. He wants one just like it, except bigger for his family. That's what he builds here. Now, his family, of course, you have Mr. Wharton, you have Mrs. Wharton. And folks, they've got something as a family I've never heard of before or since. They have 5 nannies. 5 nannies is a family all by itself. Wow. Now, I know that's the same thing I did. I thought 5 nannies, I've never even heard of that before. But they might need them. They've got 15 children. 9 of these children are girls.
Oh, man.
Yeah, 9 of these children are girls. That's a total of 22 people. Now, he builds this house, folks, 25 rooms for 22 people, 1 bathroom. Now, I know I love seeing people's faces when I say that. I realize by today's standards that 22 people in 1 bathroom is basically just, well, but you have to remember this is 1887. Almost no one has a bathroom. The lucky ones, they have a nasty little thing called an outhouse. Folks, the unlucky ones, not even going there. It gets too nasty for words, honestly. Now, folks, I grew up on a farm in the middle of North Carolina. We had 228 acres and we had an outhouse in the field. You know, we weren't complete savages. We did have indoor plumbing. And I can tell you about outhouses. The only thing cute about them is that name. They look horrible. They smell worse. There's absolutely no telling where a black-legged spider's going to bite you. So they were very happy here in this house in 1 bathroom. They stayed here until 1930. Well, 1930 comes around, folks. They're still super rich. They just decided it's time to spread their wings. They want to sell the house and move. They put it on the market. Nobody touches it. Anybody know what's going on in 1930 makes it so hard to sell a house like this?
Depression.
Yeah, I heard of a lot of places, folks. Yeah, absolutely, depression. Well, folks, kind of hard to sell a castle during a depression, so they give up. They don't care. They're still super rich. They don't need it. They desert the place. They even leave a lot of their belongings here. Well, as soon as they leave, the criminals move in. Now, folks, when I say criminals, I'm not talking about jaywalkers and shoplifters here. I'm talking hardcore. This place becomes the center of crime for all of Northeast Florida. All of it, folks, right here. The violence begins immediately. The fights and the deaths. The police want this place torn down, but the town says no, it's too valuable a property to destroy. Well, the town holds on to it for nearly 10 years, along with all those problems. Finally, they've had enough. They're ready to tear it down. Well, just 2 weeks before demolition, Mrs. Marjorie Rawlings and her husband, Norton Baskin, they come in, they buy the place and save it. Now, for their time, folks, they're both rich and famous. Mrs. Rawlings, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, a prolific author. She wrote a lot of stuff, folks. Best remembered for 2 novels, became movies, though. The Yearling and Cross Creek. Mr. Baskin, not one of the ice cream baskets, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Baskin is a world-famous hotelier. He buys places like this and he converts them into hotels. That's what he did right here. They cater to the rich and to the elite. They are known for their discretion. Today, we would likely call this a no-tell motel. Well, they have a guest coming in, richer and more famous than both of them put together. Mr. Robert Ripley, a man that I've come to admire since working here, folks. And Mr. Ripley, he started off dirt poor, picked on as a child. His drawings, his art made him famous. Well, he's got collections. He's a world traveler now. He has collections from all over the world as well, but especially China. He's also a world famous cartoonist, artist, author, radio and TV star, folks. His cartoons, Ripley's, believe it or not, still in the newspapers today, 72 years after his death. He's also a world-renowned baseball player. He really was. Now, he sees this place, he loves it, he wants to buy it and move his collections in here. They turn him down, folks, and he's disappointed, of course, but he knows he's coming back. He knows he'll have other opportunities. Well, he keeps coming back through the years, he keeps making offers. Oh, sell me this place. No, let me have it, come on. Well, folks, finally, 1949, after all that time, 1949 rolls around. Anybody want to guess what happens? Sorry, honey, it's a trick. But yeah, I'm sure that's what most people on here are thinking, that he bought it. Well, in a way, that is kind of true, though. You see, 1949, Mr. Ripley passes away. Yeah, I bet you didn't see that one coming, did you?
No.
Yeah, he dies, folks, 1949. As soon as he passes away, they start seeing ghosts come through the walls here. Now, that's their story. I'm just following it. They start seeing ghosts come through the walls. And like any responsible homeowner, folks, how many people on here have seen that Eddie Murphy skit, you know, where he's talking about ghosts? He said, "We gone, folks." That's exactly what they did. They sold this place immediately. They sold it to Mr. Ripley's estate. They moved in his collections. This became the very first Ripley's, believe it or not, and the only one that he actually stepped foot in. Now, with that out of the way, let's see if we can get a little breeze started on you folks back there and get out and see the town. Now, folks, I do have to go over our safety rules. We're heading out. Please, no standing in the train at any time. Please keep body parts inside the train at all times. There are places out there where you can be injured. If you have any kind of personal belongings, please make sure they're secured. If anything drops off, it's actually illegal for me to go back after it. Folks, I have been known to break that law. I don't want anybody to lose anything. But what I can do is fairly limited, so just please be careful. And private conversations are fine, just try to keep them low. Think of this as like talking in a movie theater. If you talk in a normal tone of voice or a normal volume, you will be disturbing people around you. Oh, I don't remember. There's like 50 of them across the world. A lot of them. Now right here, folks, our statue of David. An exact replica of the original in Florence, Italy by Michelangelo. When I say exact replica, what I mean is David has on no clothes. The only thing he is wearing is that smirk on his face. Now folks, I think most of us have seen at least one time or the other through our lives at least a picture of the statue of David. Most of us, folks, know that David just isn't that blessed of a man, if you know what I mean. Now, one thing that really surprised me about that, I went in there and checked him out. His big toes are considerably larger than certain other important parts of his anatomy. That totally floored me. Now, to each side of us, folks, here to the left, we have Lai Chi, to the right, King Lang. These are two of the oldest and most valuable pieces in the entire collection. We call these the Guardians. I'd like you to notice those hideous faces. Now, Guardians is short for their full title, Heavenly Guardians, Demon General. You see, folks, normally you see a face like that, you're going to think these are the bad guys just automatically. In this case, that's not true. They use those hideous faces to scare and control the demons, the ghosts, and the spirits that bother you during your sleep. Now, one of the ancient Chinese emperors was suffering from night terrors. His sculptors built those to protect him during his slumber. Never could find out if it helped him or not. I've done a lot of research trying to find that answer. I do know that they passed down through many generations until they came to the emperor that was a good friend with Mr. Robert Ripley. Folks, that emperor found out that Mr. Ripley was having nightmares. The emperor gave them to his good friend, Mr. Ripley, to protect him during his sleep. And again, I've never been able to find out if it helped or not. I would love the answer to that question. Over to the right. That big, beautiful stainless steel crucifix, folks, 208 feet tall. This is the Mission Nombre de Dios. That crucifix is what sets this mission off. See, 208 feet tall, another 6 inches taller, it would require strobe lights on top for worn aircraft. And at 208 feet tall until Texas found out about it. That was the tallest freestanding crucifix in the entire northern hemisphere, folks. You know Texas. Got to be number one. Can't say I blame you.
All right, Texas.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Texas. Folks, one thing that Texas can't be denied, our founder, Pedro Menendez, September the 8th, 1565, he came ashore right where you see that crucifix. Him and his companions, they came ashore, they held the very first Mass and meal of Thanksgiving done on the soil of the New World. That meal of Thanksgiving, 55 years before the meal of Thanksgiving at Plymouth Rock. Pedro Menendez is the founder of our town, folks. St. Augustine, the oldest town in the United States. Now here in the front of us, the old senator, folks. This is a live oak tree. That's the name of the species, live oak. He's very nearly 700 years old. He is our oldest citizen. Now these trees almost never get to be even 200 years old, folks, but he was already over 200 years old when Pedro Menendez landed there in 1565. No one knows why he's as old as he is, but the Fountain of Youth is just around the corner down here. I'll let you figure that one yourself. Now we're coming up to Magnolia Avenue. According to National Geographic, this is the most photographed street in the United States. It is absolutely beautiful out here, folks, even on an overcast day like this. To the right, we have the beautiful mansion. To the left, the rows of trees. These trees are truly magnificent. Now we have the trees themselves. Those green leaves, that Spanish moss dangling everywhere, folks. Gentle breeze stirring everything just so.
Oh, that truck was good.
Hey, look up there.
Yeah, look at that truck. He's going to be
Like I said, it's beautiful. Now the next thing I would like you to notice, especially you Southerners, anybody spot it? No magnolias out here, folks. Yeah, Magnolia Avenue has no magnolias. See, 1895, we had a big freeze come through, killed all the magnolias, got down to 10 degrees. Well, we replaced them with something better, hardier, just like the old senator, the live oak. Now, if you're familiar with your U.S. history, you may remember a ship by the name of the USS, I almost called it Enterprise. The USS Constitution, folks. I've been watching too much Star Trek. Yeah. Now, the Constitution is better known as Old Ironsides. Old Ironsides, folks, built in 1796, went through the War of 1812. The oldest commissioned ship in the U.S. Navy, still a commissioned battleship up at Cape May. Most people aren't aware of that. It's built entirely of live oak, just like this. She repelled cannonballs the way that your car repels raindrops. Because of this, the U.S. government asked all Southerners having property not planted into crops to please plant live oak in defense of the nation. That's why that stuff is all over the place. Now, folks, right now, we're coming into my favorite site in the entire town. Now, my favorite tour, of course, Red Train. My favorite site, right here, the Fountain of Youth, folks. There is strong evidence to indicate that Ponce de Leon, Ponce de Leon may have come through here in 1513, possibly even landed here. Oh, if you look over there under those trees, folks, you'll see a peacock sitting in the sawdust, in the mulch over there. Beautiful birds. I wanted you to see that because I'm not sure they might be hiding from the rain here very soon, or might have went to hide from it now. Now we have excavations reenactors, we have cannon fire and musket fire, we have blacksmiths, we have the fountain itself. You might wonder, does that fountain work? Well, folks, if you look around, you see some young people here. Or do you? Are these people actually young people? Or are they just seniors that came in here and drank some of the water? See, every week we get bus loads of seniors coming in from the local centers. They come in here, they drink that water, they leave looking like children. Now they have to have a great escape vehicle, folks. They really need it. They pop the cap on that radiator, they pour the water in that radiator, it leaves as a school bus. The perfect cover for those old people leaving as kids. Now you can see the peacock a little better right there, folks. We got about 50 or 60 of those birds in here. They're actually permanent residents. Nobody knows how they got here. Now we know, of course, that originally they came from India, but nobody agrees. There's about 20 or 30 different stories as to how they got here. None of them even come close to each other. I've never been able to sort through them and find the truth. But I love the peacocks and peahens. They're beautiful. I love hanging them around. Now over to the left, the planetarium. They show you what it was like to navigate using the stars during colonial times. Folks, when I said this is my favorite site to visit, I wasn't kidding. If they'd let me, I'd throw a tent up in the back and I'd live here.
10.
Now this time, rather than right, we're turning left. Left is Williams Street. Williams is residential. Folks, the residents here have requested that the drivers not speak coming through. I like being a good neighbor when I can, so I'll be back with you some 20, 25 seconds towards the other end. Folks, we're back into the commercial section. Now I'd like to direct your attention to that big red building. That is the old jail. Now we're going to pull into their parking lot, take a quick look, and then head back into town. I'm sure you can tell by what I called it, the old jail, but it's not the jail that we have today. It's not even our first modern jail. Our first modern jail was downtown. Anybody want to guess what we call that? Yeah, well, it's the older jail, of course. My hero, Mr. Henry Flagler, he didn't like that jail downtown. He asked the town to move it, but they didn't have it in their budget, so he built a brand new one himself right here. About a mile and a half from where it was downtown. Like everything he touches, it's beautiful. Now, folks, this is a jail that's the least lovely of his buildings, but it still looks nice. This is the back side. The other side looks much nicer. They had to look kind of nice, though, folks. Sheriff Perry and his family lived here as well. Now, if you look around, you see a lot of people in costume. You see a lot of prisoners right now. You see conductors, engineers. You got deputies walking around. It's really cool. This actually belongs to our direct competition. Our direct competition, the green and orange guys, the old town trolleys. Most of these guys are my buddies. I'm not going to talk any smack about them. Well, if they get close enough to hear it, I might. But I'm not going to talk any junk about them, folks. They do a great job here. They've got those wonderful costumes. They take you into jail. You have the jail itself. A couple of museums in there. They tell you these wonderful stories, folks. It's a great time. Competition or not, the old jail, it's a lot of fun. I don't mind recommending it. Now we're coming out. We're turning to the left. Left is back towards the old town. Further in that direction we go, the deeper physically into our town's history we're going to be. Folks, I'm going to start our story off at a date that everybody knows anyway. We're going all the way back to 1492. Columbus sets out from Spain. He's looking for a shorter route to India. He wants those spices. Well, folks, he doesn't find that. What he does find is an island in the Caribbean that he calls Hispaniola. Today we know it as Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Well, he actually thinks that he's in the Spice Islands. He's not, but folks, he thinks that he is. He starts looking around for spices. He doesn't find any, of course, but he does find some gold and other valuable things, and enough of that to pay off a substantial portion of his debt. So he heads back to Spain to do just that. Now he leaves 39 men behind him. These men have a job to do. They're the people who are going to establish a base of operations. Well, he gets back over to Spain. He picks up his son, Diego Colon, and that young Spaniard that I mentioned at the top, Ponce de Leon. 1493 sets off on the second of four expeditions. He gets back to Hispaniola. Folks, he's expecting a port and a base. But he can't even find his men. You see, they misbehaved while he was gone. They behaved so badly that the native Tainos there had risen up and exterminated the entire lot of them. Well, Columbus, he's not really comfortable hanging around after that. He goes sailing about through the Caribbean yet again, and he lands on this beautiful little island that he lands on several they land on this beautiful little island that I have below. In 1971, I'd been living in Florida for a year and a half, about 3 hours south, Vero Beach. Went in the Marine Corps from there, folks. I was in for 6 years. The last 2 years I was in the Marine Corps, I was stationed on this beautiful little island down in the Caribbean by the name of Puerto Rico. Beautiful island, even more beautiful people. I love it down there, folks. My wife and I today, we still go visit. Well, they loved it too. Pont stayed there. He actually became the first third and the 7th governor of Puerto Rico. He did really well for himself. He had his own mines, his own ships, he had his own plantations. Well, David Colon, Columbus' son, he's a little jealous. He uses his influence to have Ponce removed for a while. Folks, Ponce is a man of action. He goes sailing about and he lands somewhere here on the east coast of Florida. Now, we don't know precisely where for sure, but we do know when. 1513 Easter time, and the flowers were out. Because of these beautiful flowers, he calls this new man La Florida. It means flower or flower in Spanish. He claims it in the name of the King and Queen of Spain, folks. It goes great for about 50 years. But then, well, the French start moving in. Now, just real quick, I'm going to mention this hotel right here, folks. That's all I need to say is this hotel right here. I'm going to be bringing it up again in a minute. For a few minutes, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, 50 years have gone by. The French have started moving in. The new King of Spain, he doesn't like this, Philip II. He considers this his personal territory. He can't send Ponce back in, folks. Ponce would have been in his 90s. At age 42, he went down to southwest Florida. He caught a poison arrow. He went over to Cuba and passed away. So he sends the new guy. You folks remember that cruise sticks back there?
Yeah.
Pedro Menendez, 1565. That's who he sends. We'll get into his story in just a few minutes. Here to the right, the Huguenot Cemetery. Highly unlikely to see Huguenots buried out there, folks. That means Fritz Robinson. Now, if you look, what you see is 92 grave markers. What you don't see is the very nearly 500 bodies under those markers. The year is 1821. The United States has existed for some time now, and we own Florida. We get hit with a devastating plague of yellow fever, folks. It's spread by the mosquito. Most of the world gets hit with it at this time. It wipes out over a third of our town's population in just a few weeks. We don't have any place to put these bodies. We had to build that in a hurry. We moved those bodies in, like I said, almost 500 of them. They're buried in there as many as 15 deep. As we're coming out, folks, if you look across the street and over to the left, you'll see another live oak tree. Now, if you look up about 8 feet on the trunk of that tree, you see what looks like a limb growing straight up. It's not a limb at all, folks. It has those Christmas lights wrapped around it. That's actually a palm tree that rooted itself into the trunk of that oak tree. If you look up there amongst the branches, you can see the top of that palm tree coming out. Now, these are rare. We have 9 of them that we know of in St. Johns County. That said, the reason they're called love trees, they have a special magical quality. That magical quality, folks, is said to be that if you kiss someone in one of these love trees, they're with you forever. But folks, I'm here to tell you, don't do it. Forever is a long, long time. Most people have no idea. Now, coming up on the left, you notice these 2 very tall pillars, folks. These are the pillars to the original city gates. Built in 1808 of coquina, an extremely important mineral here in the United States, well, both the Americas for that matter. You're going to be hearing a lot about it. A lot of things here are built of coquina, including the fort across the street. This is the only entrance into and exit from our town. There was indeed right there a gate between those pillars. To the outside, a drawbridge. I love my drawbridges, folks. Now, if you were out there at night, that bridge was up, that gate was closed, they didn't open that stuff for anybody. It didn't matter who you were. Your chances of making it in with a whole skin the next day were pretty slim. There were a lot of things out there to get you, most of them being other people. Now, across the street, our beautiful fort. Folks, if you look above the fort at this end, you'll see the Spanish battle flag, a white field with a red X. They painted the fort just like that, the entire fort painted white. Now those round watchtowers on the corners, they're called bastions. They painted those red. They did this to make it look like that Spanish battle flag and to mark this as a Spanish stronghold. I bet it was something really beautiful to see when it was painted like that. I'd like to see it painted like that now. I volunteer to help for free. But if you look at this end, you can see residue of the original paint right there. Of course, it's faded out a lot over the centuries. Now on beyond the bay, we have our beautiful, or beyond the fort, we have our beautiful bay. Folks, right there, the bay mouth. Now to the left or north of that bay mouth, we have Milano Island. To the right or south, we have Anastasia Island. Anastasia Island is not named after the Russian princess, but the saint. But I'd like you to keep those two islands in mind for a bit. Milano and Anastasia, towards the end of the tour, I'm going to be tying it together with some other stuff, so it's kind of important. Anastasia Island, folks, and Milano. Now our beautiful bay, originally called Bay of Dancing Dolphins. I love that name. I'd like to go back to it. The reason it was called Bay of Dancing Dolphins, you can come out here just about any day, even now, especially early mornings and late afternoons. Most days they're out there, folks. They're chasing each other, swimming around, going after fish, having a great time doing dolphin things. If you've never seen a dolphin and you'd like to see one, go back there and hang around. You very likely will. Bay of Dancing Dolphins, it's a beautiful name. Now, oh, hush just a second, folks. I don't want to drown him out. Yeah, my system is so much better than his. I'll drown him out in a second. I think it's kind of a good way to do that. Now, normally you see a face like that, it's usually a guy.
Maybe she cheers up under that deal.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. Now, folks, the name of the bay today, our hero, Mr. Pedro Menendez, 1565. He's here with 3 jobs. Number 1, build new towns. St. Augustine here is the first of 12 that he builds. He's our founder. Number 2, establish safe trade routes between Mexico and Spain for the treasure ships heading back to the king and queen. He does a great job of that. Then thirdly, he is to eliminate that French presence. Well, folks, what he does next is horrible. But you have to remember, these are hard times and it calls for hard men. Pedro Menendez captures over 200 French soldiers just to the south of here. Now he sorts out the Catholics among them. There's about a dozen. He brings those back to St. Augustine to work. But the rest, still over 200 men, he executes out in the bay, folks, by sword, just as bloodily and brutally and gruesomely as he can make it done. He's wanting to make an example of these men. He wants to discourage any further excursions into the New World, and it works quite well. Since that time, our beautiful bay is now called Matanzas, or Slaughter Bay. And Pedro Menendez is now referred to as the Butcher of Avilés. Avilés being his hometown in Spain and the sister town of St. Augustine. Now, folks, let's move up to the 1880s. My hero, Mr. Henry Flagler. 1881, he's here with his wife, Mary. She has tuberculosis. They're hoping the Florida climate will help her heal, but it doesn't. She passes away on that trip. Well, 2 years later, 1883, he returns, this time with his new wife, Ida Alice. They're on their honeymoon, folks. This is when he really falls in love with St. Augustine. Well, 2 years later yet, 1885, he returns again, this time to start buying properties and building his hotels and railways. He finds one property 2 blocks back that way, folks. He really wants a hotel on it, but it has a church there. Luckily, that church is in bad shape. He makes him a deal. Well, before I tell you, folks, you might want to take a look at this tower before we turn. It's kind of hard to see through the canopy after we make the turn. He makes him a deal. He tells them he'll build them a brand new church somewhere else. All they have to do is get in the property they're on. Folks, they're into that. They jump all over. This is what he builds. This is Grace United Methodist Church. This is the first church in the United States to be built in this poured concrete or slip form style. It's distinguished by that layered look you see, like a layer cake. Folks, those hand-carved mahogany doors you see, now they painted them for some reason. I have no idea why. Over 200 pounds a piece. You've got Spanish brick, Spanish terracotta, folks. That's hand-carved as well. And you have Spanish roof tiles. He goes all out. Inside, the church itself has Lewis Comfort Tiffany stained glass fixtures. The chapel has Lewis Comfort Tiffany stained glass windows. Folks, he spares no expense to trade in with these people. Now, an interesting thing about that tower, and it's kind of a trendsetter in this, you see it doesn't have a bell in it. I normally think of those being bell towers. Folks, it doesn't contain a bell, and it's the first of several here in St. Augustine that don't have bells in the towers. We'll get into that in about 1 minute. After the Methodists got their church, well, the Baptists wanted one. Mr. Flagler, he gave them the property. He gave them half the money. They raised the rest themselves. They built it with this beautiful yellow brick that you see right here, folks. Originally this color, but painted since to protect it from the elements. Once again, big beautiful tower without a bell. Now the story behind the bells. Mr. Flagler lived nearby. Mr. Flagler loves the sound of the bells of the Cathedral Basilica. The Cathedral Basilica is about 2.5 blocks over to the east, that's towards the left. It's arguably the country's oldest Catholic church. When we go by it a bit, I'll explain what I mean by arguably. But he loves those bells. He knows that if all these churches have bells, they'll be having constant bell battles. He'll never hear those, and he likely won't get any sleep. He asked him not to put them in there, and he's putting the bill. It's as simple as that. And coming up here, folks, very likely one of the most beautiful buildings you will ever see. And I sure hope that they open these tours back up very soon. A lot of the other places are. Now this is Mr. Flagler's church, Flagler Memorial Presbyterian, folks. Based on the St. Mark Cathedral in Venice, Italy. Now I've been to Venice many times. I've been inside that church over there many times. This, in my opinion, is actually considerably more beautiful. Now, folks, they're both beautiful. The one in Venice, though, you go inside, it's like a huge gold bowl that somebody turned. I mean, everything in there is gold. I mean that quite literally. I think they gold-plated the priest. But now, anybody wanting good pictures of this, folks? I'm going to be turning left out of here, and about the time we get to where that driveway is in this parking lot, if you take the picture back in this direction, that's going to be your best angle. That sounded like a shotgun. Probably somebody shooting a musket. They sound very similar. Now, as beautiful as it is, it has a tragic backstory. Mr. Flagler has one daughter, Jenny Louise, and he loves her very much. Well, of course he does. This is his kid. She's on the way from New York to visit with her father. She's on the yacht the other night. It belongs to her in-laws. She's with child. She goes into labor on this trip. She and the baby both pass away. He is crushed. I know it kills me to tell it. I've told this story thousands of times. Still bothers me. Well, he wants this church up within a year to commemorate the anniversary of their passing. Everybody tells me it can't be done. Folks, this is one of the richest men in the world. By today's standards, he'd be worth about $14 billion with a B dollars. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of money. He gives them all the money and materials they need. They literally put this thing up in 361 days. Folks, you can't even do the paperwork for this thing in 361 days. And I mean that quite literally. That church, that hotel, remember I pointed at the hotel. Just remember this. Folks, Mr. Patel has been working on that. Well, he hasn't been working. He's been working on it now for about 2 years, but he's been working on that paperwork since 2005. Yeah, it gives you an idea of the difference, right? Yeah. Now these windows you see, that was ordinary glass for 11 years. Herman T. Schlotterman, former apprentice to Lewis Comfort Tiffany, did these windows, folks. If you get a chance, whenever they open these up, you got a chance to come back here and look, go in there and please check those windows out from the inside. I think you'll agree, they were worth every minute of that 11-year wait. They're fantastically beautiful. Also on the inside, on a sadder note, almost said 5,000 pipe organ. That is in there, folks, but that's not sad. The body of Mr. Flagler, the body of his wife Mary, the bodies of his daughter and granddaughter, all interred in this far corner up here to the front, folks, the southwestern corner. But on a happier note, that 5,000 pipe organ I was talking about, hand-carved mahogany pews going out through, again, hand-carved mahogany doors. This time, nobody painted it, folks. I don't know why, but it just bugs me that somebody painted that mahogany over there at the Methodist Church. Mahogany is such a beautiful wood, weather-resistant wood, and they painted it. Now, as we're coming out, if you look back, you'll see up on top that Byzantine cross stretching up to 125 feet, right on top of that wonderfully patinaed copper dome, folks. Love me some great copper. Those beautiful windows and that terracotta, folks. That terracotta is some of the most amazing I've ever seen. I've been all over the place. Beautiful buildings, though, pretty much synonymous with the name of Henry Flagler. Coming up next, that's actually quite literal. You see, this is Flagler College. Now, it didn't start off as a college, ladies and gentlemen. 1968, it opened its doors as a college for women only. Today, it is a 4-year liberal arts degree school. It is co-ed. My 14-year-old granddaughter has informed me I'm going to be paying for her to go to college here. I like her taste and I like the price, folks. Anybody familiar with college prices? This is $19,500 a year. That is bargain basement prices, let me tell you. Now, I told you it didn't start off as a college. This was actually Mr. Flagler's first hotel, Ponce de Leon. September the 8th, 1565, it opened its doors. It had hot and cold running water, unheard of. It also had electricity. 4 years before the White House, also unheard of. Anybody know who put the electric in here? Anybody? Think big. Think light bulb. Absolutely, Thomas Edison, folks. This rotunda you see, now there's plastic sheets to the outside of the windows, but I'd like you to look at those windows, folks. That rotunda is originally the ballroom for the hotel. Today it's the dining room for the college. Those windows I was pointing out to you, that is the largest standing collection of Louis Comfort Tiffany stained glass windows in the world. Right there, folks, in the world. We had one of those big road shows come through here a few years ago. They said those windows were worth about $40 million. Folks, that's not the building. That's those windows. $40 million. That is $40 million worth of stained glass windows in a college kid's dining room. That gives me a little shiver every time I think about it. But I have to say, we got the best kids here I have ever seen. Now look at the front of this building. It just keeps getting more beautiful. Folks, as you go inside, it gets more intensely beautiful yet. The inside makes the outside look like a doghouse. I've been to the Vatican. I've been inside the Sistine Chapel, folks. I don't feel a bit amiss comparing the murals and the paintings they have in there to anything that you find in either of those places. I've been in the Louvre, same story. Now, while we were at Ripley's, I mentioned that Mr. William Warden, the man that built what is today Ripley's Museum, he found a house here he liked very much. He wanted one just like it, except bigger, for his family. Folks, the Via Zareta. This is the Via Zareta. This is the winter home to Mr. Franklin Smith, another friend and partner of Mr. Henry Flagler. Today, it's an antiquities museum. These murals you see right there, some of the exhibits they have inside. Wonderful museum. I mentioned that this house is extremely important to the world even today, folks. What I mean by that? Well, this is the first house in Florida to be done in this poured concrete or slip form style. Only the second in the entire United States, Mr. Smith being the innovator of this technique. Now what that means, well, I have to explain how it's done. They put down a form. Oh, it's so much cooler now than it was an hour and a half ago. They put down a form. They fill that form with a wet cement. They let it set up. Then they raise that form, folks. Raising it is called slipping. That's where the other name, slip form, comes from. Then again, they fill it with a wet cement and let it set. And raise, cement, set, raise, cement, set. You get the idea. They do this until they get the height they need. That's what gives it this unique layered look, like a layer cake, folks. This took off like a rocket. This is stronger and cheaper than any other building method out there. This is how they build modern skyscrapers all across the world today, folks, and other things like dams and such. Folks, Mr. Smith being the innovator of this technique. Now, Mr. Smith never built a skyscraper. He did, however, help Mr. Flagler build all three of his hotels done in this fashion. Both the churches done in this style, Presbyterian and Methodist. This building, Ripley's, and a couple of others across the United States, folks. You can tell just by looking. He's really refined his technique by the time he's got up here. This is much more refined than that one. And we're a bit further away. You can see and appreciate the beauty of this building. Folks, anybody wanting a good picture of the Ripley Museum or his second hotel, Alcazar, now would be your time to take it. If you're wanting a good picture of the college, I'm going to be turning right in front of that, and that'll be your time to take that picture. Now, he did forget a couple of small things, folks. He forgot that it's 1888, and there's nothing to do in St. Augustine. He forgot to put any entertainment in his hotel as well. His friends, well, he can't have them getting bored, folks. They're almost as rich and influential as he is. So how does he fix that little problem? That is right here. This is the second of his hotels, the Alcazar, today known as the Light Museum. Folks, anybody wanting a good picture of the college, right about here. And then as we're making these turns and stuff, that is going to be about your best shot. Now, folks, over here, he puts the entertainment. He has a casino, he has spas, he has a black and white silent movie theater. He has a bowling alley, he has the world's largest indoor swimming pool. The pool has a hand crank canopy over the top. You can open it to the sky, night or day. Anybody can stay over here, 5 cents a night, up to $2, folks. You got that nickel a night room? That bowling alley I mentioned? You sleep under it. But you know, my wife is always accusing me of being a tightwad. This might prove it. You see, if I found a nickel a night room today, I don't think I'd much care if it's under a bowling alley. I think I could get used to that. Now, this man right here, folks, this is Pedro Menendez, the founder of our town. He's also the guy that captured and slaughtered over 200 French soldiers out in the bay. He also held the highest rank attainable in colonial Spain. He was called a captain general. A captain in the Navy, a general in the Army at the same time, folks. He fought both land and sea. He's pretty much colonial Spain's equivalent to the Commandant of the Marine Corps today. Folks, have no doubt this man was extremely hardcore. Have no doubt. He was also extremely hardworking and industrious. Again, have no doubt. Folks, I'd like you to notice what this industrious, hardcore man is wearing. Now, to be sure, I'm getting ready to judge it by modern standards. But folks, a lot of it I like. A lot of it I don't like at all. That clown collar, that would have to go. I don't like that a bit. Now that metal breastplate, I love that. That definitely stays. I like the hat, it's cool. The sword and the buckler, that would definitely stay. I wouldn't mind having one of those right now. The boots, definitely cool. The folks coming up from there, the tights would have to go. Those fluffy short pants, maybe my wife would like them. But remember, I'm judging from today's standards. Folks, this is the epitome of the way a gentleman dressed during colonial times, all kidding aside. Those pants that I was making so much fun of, that was a sure sign of your status. The higher your rank, the higher your breeches. Wow. Now, I really don't want to think about what King might have been wearing. Now, with that out of the way, remember 5 cents a night up to $2, anybody could stay here. Over here across the street, folks, it didn't matter how much money you had. You just couldn't come put it down and stay. Here at the Ponds, you had to be invited personally by Mr. Flagler. You had to be in his circle of friends. That doesn't mean you got out cheaply, though, folks, because you sure didn't. What you had to pay over there, well, first of all, they didn't have a nightly price. They had a seasonal price. You had to buy the whole season, folks, and they only had one. January, February, and March. 90 days. Unless it's leap year, then 91. What you had to pay for that? $4,000 to $9,000, depending on accommodation. But folks, today, $9,000 is a good chunk of change. But you have to remember, that's not today's $9,000. This is 1888 up until the first of World War I. You can go on Google, you can convert this in about 20 seconds if you want, folks. You take that $9,000, you convert that into today's money, you're going to find out it's almost exactly $251,000. That is a cool $250,000. That is a huge difference. Now coming up, Lincolnville, home to the painted ladies, folks. Lincolnville, named after our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. Painted ladies, doesn't take a genius to see why that is, folks. These are Victorian homes that are being restored and repainted in those beautiful and vibrant colors back in the day it's done. Across the street on the right, this blue and gray house, folks, we call this the Jefferson House. Thomas Jefferson's granddaughter lived here. So we're going to start our story off in 1866. The Civil War has just ended. We have a lot of displaced African American Union soldiers. We have a lot of former slaves. They all need a place to live. St. Augustine says, come here. We'll give you this property for free. You can even build your homes for free. All we ask is that you have a job. Folks, when I first heard that, I had a hard time believing it. I had to do the research myself. But it was indeed true. Well, they came in, they built nearly 1,000 of these beautiful homes around here. Sadly, only about 200 of those are still up. But most of those are being restored, even as I speak. And as for the jobs, well, folks, when you've got a family to support or you want to eat yourself, a job is a job. But a couple that they like, not because they necessarily like that type of work, because of the independence that it offered and the better pay, much better pay for that time, fishing and shrimping. Now, if you look right there, you can see the top of those sailboat masts. There's a marina there. It joins into the Matanzas River, goes out by the fort. Fishing and shrimping, as I said, offered a lot of independence and better pay. Well then, just like today, you have to have ice to keep that catch fresh. Folks, here in St. Augustine especially, up until 1907, if you wanted ice, most of it came out of the Arctic. It came down by ship. It was hard to get, and it was expensive.